Tier list mode. It's back. It's back. But today, God difficulty tier list. The God difficulty tier list here. Basically, which gods are the hardest to play? Which gods are the easiest to play? So, starting from S tier is easiest. Easiest to, well, let's just say hardest down here. We'll go medium and we'll go hard. All right. Maybe we'll give ourselves another one here at a later stage. Okay, so the easiest gods, obviously, you have to chuck Gaia up the top. It takes very little skill to pilot Gaia. It takes a lot of skill to pilot Gaia at the absolute top echelon, but to get to a decent level with Gaia, it's very, very simple. Hades, I would say, is a little bit of a harder god. Probably not in the hard column because the economy is very, very simple, but a little bit harder than Gaia. Isis is possibly easier than Hades, but harder than Gaia. So we're going to move Hades down to hard. Maybe we'll actually make this easy and make this medium because I feel like I'm going to start spreading this out fairly crazily as I'm trying to work this one out. Okay, hardest, and then don't even try it because it's too hard. All right, so Gaia sitting in this tier. Kronos here is another relatively easy god to play, but he's actually quite difficult to I think I would put Kronos maybe in the same tier as Isis in terms of ease to play, but just like there's a couple of things you really need to kind of learn to get any value out of Kronos, which Gaia doesn't really need you to do. Loki here is in a very similar position to Isis in that if you learn one strategy, you can kind of play Isis / play Loki against any civilization. Just learn the Ancestors Eclipse all in, or learn Hersa, Forseti Hersa, Hall of Thane's Hersa with Loki, and you're good to go. So very, very simple. We'll put Odin here. Odin is probably one of the more difficult gods because you have to learn a couple of strategies to get going. A lot of stuff to kind of goes into playing Odin to a high level. Especially the economy is difficult. The army is quite a challenging one to control as well. I would say this is on the hard or hardest side of things here. We'll see which other gods come up and see if anyone goes into hardest here. Uranus, I think we all understand that Uranus is a very, very easy god. This is one of the gods you would recommend to any beginner here who wants to play. Whether Uranus is easier than Gaia or not, that would come up to a debate for yourself to decide. Uranus has a very, very simple strategy that he can run every single game against any civilization and have success, especially at the lower levels. And as you get better, you only have to add little variants into your builds to kind of squeeze out some other sort of strategies. So he is actually really easy. I'll actually put him potentially into his own tier of easiest, with Gaia sitting one above him, because I think he is, simply put, just that easy. Poseidon after this. See, the thing is, while Poseidon here is kind of very similar to Hades, Poseidon does have the option to basically just spam Hippocon in a very similar way that Loki and Isis does, and you can kind of get away with that up until a certain level before you have to actually start to learn how to play the game. So you can actually do one strategy versus everyone and kind of win. But in that regard, I would still put Poseidon in like a slightly more difficult tier than Isis and Loki here. Ra here, next god, going to be in a very similar position to Gaia. I think that because of the Ra 2 town center fast heroic strategy with the farms, you can learn one build order and be already ready to go into a competitive game and do that build order every single game and have a lot of success with this god. This god is, if you don't want to play Uranus when you're starting out, this god is a fantastic one to pick up first. Super strong, super easy build order to learn and use every single game. And you can be having success from the very get-go. Set at this point, it depends on if you're playing on Voobly or on Extended Edition. On Voobly, set is pretty easy. You just kind of advance fast, build Kopesh, and win the game. On Voobly, however, set is in the don't even try it column because, well, you have to macro for essentially the entire game by killing your animals. If you don't do this as set, you're going to suck with set. Set is going to be a useless god compared to everyone else. Whatever strength that set has, if you don't utilize the macro feature of creating animals, eating your animals, and controlling that while doing everything else, you're going to be struggling to win with this god. Now, that being said, it is actually learnable. It's not that difficult, but yeah, that's the thing. Next god, Thor. I wouldn't say that Thor's as hard as Odin because you get the Dwarven Mind, which does help you out quite a bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put Thor up here, a little bit harder than Hades, but not that much harder than Hades. Thor's economy a bit easier because the dwarves are a bit cheaper, so you can kind of manage that as well a little bit easier. Thor's strategy, I mean, you could kind of get away with just learning mass raiding cavalry and doing that every game. So technically you could potentially learn a very simple strategy, but in terms of kind of the depth of Thor, it goes a bit farther. And then Zeus here, I'll put this one kind of possibly a touch higher than Odin. But that being said, Zeus does also have a very easy strategy. So potentially that means that while you can push Zeus to the hardest echelon, if you go Hermes, if you go Athena, however, Zeus becomes really easy to play. In fact, I would actually argue that Zeus with Athena is possibly as easy as Kronos. Maybe we'll put him here as slightly easier than Kronos. Because you just go Athena Rush. Now, if you go, I'm going to qualify this. If you want to learn Hermes, that is in the hardest column. But if you're just playing Athena, he's in the medium column. So in terms of just like the very basics of these civs, that's where it is. Now, if we go into a different column and we say hardest to master, things get a little bit different. Hardest to master, what kind of ends up is all of the Norses become down the bottom here. All of the Greeks, with Zeus probably also coming down here as well. Set gets to stay in this position. I would probably say that Hades and Poseidon are relatively similar to master here. I would say Kronos. I'd say Gaia is a little bit harder to master. I'd say than easy because you have to learn all about the defensive problems that come into it, but probably it's not a crazy difficult thing. Kronos here, I can't put any god that is not Atlantean. I think that Uranus should be the easiest to master. I think Ra would be easier than Isis to master. I think that Isis is a little bit challenging to master, but not necessarily more challenging than the Greeks to master. This is a difficult one. I reckon that's probably where it goes in terms of list to. This is kind of the list of hardest, easiest to hardest to master. So there you go. You got the gods to start with, and you got the gods to master here in the lists. Hope you guys enjoyed that one. Very, very good. Winning. Happy days. Let me know if you guys agree or disagree in the comments. I already can see Twitch chat saying that Boit is very stupid. But that's all it is. Anyways, fantastic.